Hello everyone! Thank you very much for joining me today. And 1 second, check in my Facebook. Make sure you're seeing me live. And there we are. So today we're talking about, are you focusing on the right things? And of course this topic I've touched on many a times in a lot of the videos, because focus is very important. Being focused on a single goal, a single task, getting through it. I know there's so many things in our personal lives and our business as you work your transactions and buyers and sellers and working with the other agent and title companies and mortgage companies and setting up inspections and closings. There's so many things that you have to do, sort of distractions if they're not organized. But are you focused on the right thing? So you got to be focused about things that you need to do, and you have to focus on what your buyers and sellers want to accomplish, because also they get distracted because they don't do this every day. They buy and sell a house, unless they're an investor that's buying houses all the time. They do this every several years or even more, decades, so that they're not used to all of the distractions that come with that. So today I'm just going to give you some ideas about yourself to keep yourself focused, and how to keep your buyers and seller focused, and remember what they should be focusing on. Because I talk to agents every day, and sometimes you forget because you're in the middle of it. Forget what they should be focused on. So first, yourself. Now you have to be committed to growth, committed to success, and work on focusing on what's most important to you to get to that success. There is no direct way of getting successful in real estate. I mean, specific tasks, specific things, exactly like call this person, email that person, put this person on your database, follow up with it. You have to figure the system out. Now, the general path, the path on how you get there is pretty set forward. Example, if you're traveling from Ohio to California, there's paths. There's a map that you can go different roads, but you have to go west to get to California. You can't go east. You can't go south. Well, you can, but then you got to hit west eventually. So the point I'm getting at is that you've got to make sure you are focused and pointed in the right direction, which I mean, when you're focused and want to be successful in real estate, you have to prospect, you have to build relationships, you have to network with people, you have to build your database, you got to follow up with your database, emails, door knocking, all of this stuff that I talked about, but you have to be focused on that a certain number of hours a day. Just like if you're having a trip, you have to drive or fly or walk or ride your bike. You have to spend and be focused on spending a certain number of time each day working towards your goal and moving in the right direction. So every day, just check, are you focused on at least a small portion of your day, at least, on focusing on building your business? I know it. I know agents that I coach are not doing enough of it. They're thinking about it. They're planning. They're organizing. They're taking classes. Those are all good things. It's kind of like going back to taking a trip. Yeah, you could plan. You could point this out on a map or on your app on your cell phone, your Maps app. You could plan the trip of where you're going to stay and where you're going to what you're going to do some research, or what hotels and what stops you're going to make on the way there. But if you don't get in the car and start the engine and start moving and doing the work, you're not going to get there. You're just going to sit there and plan and plan. You might have the best plan ever. Have you had people like that? Or maybe even yourself said, if I ever travel cross country, I'm going to stop this place, this place, this place. I'm going to see Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. I'm going to see some of the national parks. I'm going to stop at in Las Vegas. I'm going to stop at wherever. You're going to make stops on the way there. But if you can have the greatest plan in the world, but if you never start moving, you're never going to get there. You just have a great plan. So I know there's a lot of agents out there that have great plans. They just don't drive enough every day. They don't drive fast enough. They're just not getting in the car and going. So think about that each day, about your focus. Now, about buyers and sellers. Buyers. Just think about this with a buyer, and you might not remember this when the last time you bought a house, before you were an agent. So maybe many of you bought a house before you were an agent, didn't have the knowledge that you have now. It's like, where to look, what's coming on the market. Should I take this house? Is there a better one coming? Is this the right street, the right neighborhood, the right school district? And then guess what? As a buyer, you start talking to family and friends that jump out of the bushes, so to say, and want to give them their 2 cents of what they suggest they should do. And then how about all those Uncle Joes out there? Uncle Joe, the expert in buying and selling houses, that has still lived in the same house for 40 years, is the expert now that your buyers are listening. So they get very bombarded with things and confused, and they miss the focus, and they get nervous, and they reach to you, and sometimes they question you. Have you had that before, where you go, "I'm the expert"? Don't listen to your Uncle Joe or your Aunt Mary or your next door neighbor who had their real estate license 20 years ago. You are the expert, and the person that's going to navigate them through that. So sometimes you have to help them down their path of what's most important to them and keep them focused. Example, my opinion, price of houses. I'm going to give you a tip. This is my suggestion when buyers are up against multiple offers. Good, important tip. A little bit of coaching today, of my opinion, and there's different ways to do it. Is that one? Buyers. What are they focused on? They want this house. They want this neighborhood. When's the last time you've seen a house on the market in this neighborhood? They need to get this house. And what are they focused on? Are they focused on getting the house? Or are they focused on paying too much for the house? Are they focused on that? That's your job to explain to them, don't worry, it's my job to make sure you don't overpay for that house. And also it's your lender's job to make sure you don't overpay for that house. Let's just work on this and focus on you really want this house. Also, some buyers out there don't realize that if every $1,000 they go up in price, they think is $1,000 out of their pocket when they buy the house. Not really. It's that their down payment goes up a few dollars, and their payment might go up $4 to $5 a month. Ask their loan officer to do a calculation. Every $1,000 of loan, how much exactly to the penny is that? Because I've had buyers get upset at agents in the past because they didn't know that, and they were just wanted to win. They go, the house is listed at $299. I'm not going to pay $299 for it because that's what they're asking. So you got to help focus your buyers on what's most important and not price. Other things, a little bit of training here on what to say to buyers. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, this house is listed at $299. I think it's going to go for asking price or over asking price. But this property in this area has increased in value X amount of, over the last few years. Here's some sales from 3 years ago, 4 years ago. This is the average per square foot. This is a house that sold just like it 5 years ago, and this is what they sold for. So that it's increasing in value. So if you buy this property at $310, $315, 5 years from now, no one could tell you exactly what this house is worth 5 years from now. Could be the same, could be lower, could be higher. So some buyers are focused on value now when they're not going to sell for 10 years. Why are they focused and worried, within reason. I'm not saying they're buying a $300,000 house for $500,000, but if it's a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more, and they're going to live there 10 plus years, who's to say what the value is going to be 10 years from now? We've seen people, their values increase exponentially, and they've, it worked out well for them over the years. So you have to keep, the whole point of this is you have to keep your buyer focused on how much they want the house. I've seen buyers miss out on the house of their dreams because they're so focused on value. Also, I tell buyers is that you have a loan. We're going to double check this value when the appraisal comes in. And when the appraisal comes in, if that appraisal is low, there's different. We might not be able to move forward. Your lender might not let you move forward, and you have a safety net. You're going to, and that's what we have to jump to the other side of that. So we have to tell our sellers. So like, ooh, look at this guy wants to pay $30,000 over asking price, and go, Mr. Seller, that's great, but you got to be worried about the appraisal. The appraisal might not come in right, and they won't get their loan. So I know there's agents out there, and I don't want to go into like a half-hour call about this, about writing into contracts that, hey, if the appraisal comes in low, the buyer will pay the difference. There's good ways and bad ways to do that when you're the buyer and or seller. So any agent out there, Central and HomeStar agent out there, if you need help with how to write that correctly when it's your buyer and when it's your seller asking for that in the contract, there's specific verbiage. You just can't say buyer will pay the difference if the appraisal comes in low. I've seen that many of times. That is something that you need a little bit more verbiage in there on both sides, buyer side, seller side. Just can't write that in there. So, because I've seen deals still fall apart because of it. So, if you get in that circumstance, please call me. Okay, but back to focus. I got to refocus on what I'm focusing on. So, yes. So, remember, keep your buyers focused. So you look out for their best interest because they're getting all this information in the internet. They're searching, they're researching the area, they're driving by the house any number of times. There's so many things, but your job, what your calling is, your duty, your moral obligation to your buyers to keep them focused on what's most important to them because they sometimes lose focus. Same with your sellers. Our first knee-jerk reaction is always price, price, price. Well, if we get the highest price, they're going to be happy. Not all the time. So you know this from seeing multiple offers. If you have a listing or have had a listing or have had many listings over the last year or so, you've seen multiple offers. And I've had agents call me and say, I have 20 offers. I had that this weekend. How to even manage 20 offers and trying to figure out who's best and what's best and how that is. There's a lot of ways to look at things. I'll just give you two minutes of explaining to you. There's lots of things to look at. There's price, there's time, there's qualified buyers if they're pre-approved. Now there's a whole nother level, who the other agent is. And not that should affect anything, but sometimes there are agents out there that just, I have a list in my head of agents at all different companies over the years that for some reason just always attract flaky buyers, that they don't pre-qualify and make sure they're ready, willing, and able buyers, and then they back out a lot. So I've seen that a lot, and I've helped agents go, hey, that's a great agent, or that agent for some reason, I had 3 deals with that agent last year with our listings, and they all fell apart for some reason. So you have to use all of your knowledge or experience with people. Also, lenders and loan officers. There's great loan officers out there. There's great lenders, loan officers out there, but there's some that are not so great. And I've seen, we make a mental note, any agent that's watching this has been in real estate a long time, has a blacklist, we call it. I don't know if I call it blacklist, of like, oh, I hate to see when those people are involved in a transaction because we've over and over, there's been issues. A good lender is very important. So, example, my opinion, this is not, everybody doesn't have to do this, but if I have 3 offers and all identical. And one is with a lender that I know is great and does a great job, and one is a lender I've never even heard of, out of state, ABC Lending in Wichita, and or some online company is the number third one that's that the other buyer's agent doesn't even know who they are. So you could question. So back in the training and keeping focus, you could question those offers and question buyer's agent of who the lender is. Do they know who they are? Do they trust them? Where did the buyer find them? Because you have to do your due diligence and keep your seller focused on what deal's most important, what offer is most important. Not always money. Just had an agent, a seller last night would not decided would not take an escalation clause, even though it was more money than for her, but took the next offer that wasn't an escalation clause because it was cleaner, easier, and we kept her focused on what's best for her. So these are examples of what you have to do as a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. Keep them focused on what's most important to them to get them to their goals. Keep them focused on your sellers if it's time, is it convenience, is it renting back because they haven't found something. There's so many different things. It's not about sign the highest contract, let's get the house sold, but you got to think of everything else, because sometimes they're just focused on money. Sometimes they're just focused on who's going to close faster, and they don't even think of, hey, you're closing both houses on the same day. When are you going to move? When are you going to move? Well, we'll figure it out. We'll move the next day. We'll move out the same day that it closes. And some agents don't put a couple of days in there or a week in there or some time for people to close, buy their new house, get out of the old house, and give their time there and work that deal out. We've seen that happen a few times every year where things are backed up. Try not, I keep on falling into some training because I love doing it, is that try not to close on a Friday at the end of a month on a holiday weekend. And don't tell your buyers that you schedule the moving truck for Saturday morning when you're signing Friday afternoon or evening. So again, these are why I'm going into a little bit of training. Is just to examples of things that you've got to focus on. Keep your buyers focused on all the moving parts, on everything as a whole. Keep your sellers focused. Keep yourself focused on what your job is and what your obligation is to your buyers and sellers. And when you have a successful closing, everybody's happy, things worked out well. That's when the referrals come without even asking. So that's it for today. So sorry I wasn't as focused as I want. It's hard for me to get into some specific training on some of these videos and keep them short. So remember, keep me as a resource. Call me, text me, email me, especially Century 21 HomeStar agent if you need help with multiple offers, keeping your buyer focused, seller focused, trying to figure out what they should be focused on. I love doing that, do that every day, and enjoy doing it 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day. Evenings are fine too. Of course, a lot of you talk to me in the evenings because that's when you're trying to keep your buyers and sellers focused. So, all right, that's it for today on Wednesday. We will see you tomorrow, high noon on Thursday. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.